Yo, what's going on guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some balance changes which I think Brawl Stars desperately need. So I did a tier list yesterday. If you missed it, make sure to check that one out before today's video. But yesterday's tier list just highlighted some really strong brawlers and weak ones. So I thought, let's do some balance changes. Start off with some nerfs then. Start off with Fang, of course. He's like the best brawler in the game right now. He's so strong. So last balance changes, he received 2 buffs to his super damage and his super charge rate, which just made him so strong. So for me, one of these buffs have to be reverted. I don't care which one, whether it's the buff to the super damage, which has just made in turn fresh kicks so strong. Now he's able to finish off kills so ridiculously fast and then just spam out his super. So maybe a small nerf to his super damage, or the other change where it actually made it so now you actually from your super build up it so much faster. So before, say if you hit every single brawler, hit all 3 brawlers, you would need 2 more kicks to build up your super, and with the update you only need 1 kick after hitting 3 brawlers with your super. So it's just made him chain supers crazy. One of these buffs have to be reverted. Then I feel like Fang will still be pretty strong, but nowhere near as broken. So jumping into the next nerf I want to see, it is with Shelly. So Shelly has been broken for basically this whole entire year. So I want to see 2 nerfs with her. The first one is going to be with her super charge rate. So Shelly, of course, right now can just chain supers so ridiculously fast. I think that's one reason why she's so strong. And then you combine this with her hypercharge, it essentially means that she's going to be getting hypercharge so fast now because she's able just to spam that super button. So hopefully a small nerf to that, but not too much because it might kill her. And then of course clay pigeons. You guys know for the longest time clay pigeons have been so strong, so hopefully 2 of these nerfs will actually bring Shelly down a lot. So jumping into another nerf I really want to see, it is with Crow. So Crow been asking for a meaningful Crow nerf for such a long time now. He's been receiving small nerfs, but I think maybe eventually they catch up to him, but they need to just kill Slow and Toxin now, especially since the extra gadget gear, it's just way too toxic. I think they need to nerf the duration to like 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds. I know that only feels like a small amount, but that's still enough time really to capitalize on a kill. And you just shouldn't be able to slow 3 people with a click of a button. I think it's way too strong. So jumping into another nerf I really need to see before the next update, it is with Rosa. So if you missed it on the Time to Explain podcast, Frank revealed that Rosa will be getting a brand new hypercharge, and I believe when she activates her super, she'll slow people around her or something like that, which to me just sounds broken, because if you think about it, Rosa was actually the most banned / picked brawler in the entirety of competitive within the last month, which just shows Rosa is already really strong. Add a hypercharge onto that, she's going to be broken, so she needs a nerf to turn her down a little bit. So for me, I think just nerfing her super charge rate a little bit will be sufficient. So it takes her a little bit longer to get her super. I think that'd be pretty good because already she's got the tank trait, which helps her build up her super. I think she definitely needs toning down in some way. So jumping into another nerf I really need to see happen with the next update, it is Squeak. So I feel like I'm just repeating the nerfs I want to see for the past like 4 or 5 months now, but Squeak is a brawler which is just so toxic still. Even with Residues receiving a small nerf, it just needs to be killed as well. It's just such an annoying gadget to face off against. No brawler should have so much value with a gadget, and it's just been exemplified even more now since the extra gadget charge gear. So nerfing it from, I think it's like 8 or 6 seconds now, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it should just go down to like 4 seconds because it's just stupid how much value this gadget gets. Okay, so moving on to the final nerf I want to see with the update, it is with Buster. So I know you guys are going to say straight away, well, Buster and Fang have only just became meta, but I think this definitely deserves some small nerfs. So with Buster, I think 1 of 2 nerfs should be enough for him. So they could either revert the damage or HP buff, which they did with the last update, or just a small damage nerf would be sufficient, because whenever you're actually buffing the damage, a lot of time you're buffing the super charge rate as well. So Buster needs less ammo to actually build up his super now. I think that's a bit too toxic. He's able to get super luck all the time, I feel like. So actually nerfing the damage will indirectly nerf his super charge rate as well. So that could be sufficient. Or we need to nerf his slow-mo replay gadget, because now he has 4 uses of it. It's just highlighted how strong this gadget is. It has the slowing effect as well, which I think just isn't needed. I know it's called slow-mo replay, but still, it's just too toxic. Remove the slowing effect, and I feel like he might be a little bit more balanced. So now moving on to the buffs I really want to see with the new update. First one is going to be with Frank. So I know what you guys are going to think straight away, but we've been asking for Frank buffs for the longest time now. He isn't receiving any buffs, so for me, it's quite clear that they're going to rework him in some way. So that's why I'm calling for you guys to comment down below the ways you think Frank should be reworked. Because you got to remember, you don't want him to break lower ladder, because he's very useful in lower ladder. If you actually check the statistics, he's probably got a really strong win rate in that kind of 500, 600 trophy level. So you don't want to break him in that level, but at the same time in competitive, he's unusable. So in some way, we need to make Frank usable. Okay, so jumping into the next buff I really want to see with the update, it is with Doug. So Doug for me has to be one of the most unfun brawlers Brawl Stars has ever released. I kind of forgot he existed, so he needs some love. He's terrible right now. He's easily one of the worst brawlers in the game. So the first buff I want to see is with his super. So of course, one thing that Brawl Stars really didn't want to do was make Doug way too strong, because his super has a lot of potential. But it's the fact that I'm never actually thinking about using my super on a teammate. It's actually too hard to hit most of the time, or it's too awkward to time. So I think just making the super hitbox a lot easier to hit would be a good appealing start. And then the next one is to do with his respawning after he dies, but when he has the super. So you get what I mean. So say if you pop your super and then you die, it still takes some seconds to then fully respawn. I think maybe decreasing the amount of time it takes to respawn might be a good start, because then you're able to catch the opponents off guard with the amount of HP you have. So jumping into another brawl I want to see a buff with, it is with Janet. So of course I don't want to make Janet anywhere near the S tier again, because she had her limelight for such a long time, but considering she's F tier and nearly unusable and competitive, I think she deserves a small buff. So I think it's quite clear that she could probably do with a buff to her damage and her super charge rate, but I don't want to go down that route again, because then she'll just be really strong. I think just buffing her HP a little bit. I think the problem is with Janet is that people can just get close to her and destroy her so quickly. So just a small HP buff might be enough to maybe make her like a D or C tier brawler. So jumping into the next brawl I want to see a buff with, it is with Hank. So again, Hank is in a weird position, kind of like Doug, where no matter what they kind of do with him, it just doesn't make him strong whatsoever. Hank, I guess, is a little bit underrated, does deal a lot of damage. But again, I just want to see the fact again that you can heal up when you're charging up your bubble. I just want this change, because for me, he just feels so horrible to use. It just doesn't feel like he fits into Brawl Stars. It's like a completely different mechanic brawler. The fact that you have to wait for your bubble to expire and then have to wait to heal up all the way and then charge up your attack, I don't know, it really hurts my brain trying to do it. So of course I'd have to nerf his damage and HP probably a little bit, but we just need to add this change, because Hank is just horrible to play. Jumping into another brawler I really want to see a buff with, it is with BB. So you BB mains out there, you've been struggling for a while. She's not been usable for a couple of years now. She's only really strong in heist and can be okay in like Brawl and some other scenarios, but she definitely needs a buff. So you could buff her in a few ways, of course. A lot of time the route they go down is just by buffing her star powers or her main HP. That could be a nice change, but I think just buffing one of her gadgets. I think the heal gadget is already going to get buffed, because you know they haven't done this scaling right, but I think just buffing on top of that scaling, which she was just due a buff with anyway, because the extra HP with her gadget could just make her a lot more tanky, a lot more threatening, because let's face it, mechanically she's pretty flawed. She gets interrupted so easily with her main attack, so this will be a nice change. So jumping into another buff I really want to see with the update, it is with Leon. So I think Leon is a brawler which not many people are talking about. He's one of the most popular brawlers in the game, but he's terrible. He was actually picked 0 times in competitive the last month or so, which just goes to show how bad he is, because about a year ago or so he was among the most picked and banned brawlers, because he was so versatile everywhere. So I think it's just dropped down so easily. I think one buff I want to see is with the mythic gear. I think the mythic gear is terrible. It offers no valuable value. I think they should be buffing it by at least maybe a couple of seconds, so you're able to use your super for a longer duration, you're able to get more value and make more plays. And then the second one, I think they should just buff his damage. I feel like he actually doesn't deal enough damage right now. Everyone just seems to overpower him, so I'd like to see Leon become a little bit more meta again. So jumping into another buff I really want to see, it is with Bo. So I don't want him to be buffed too much, because then my randoms in Power League would play him absurd amounts like they used to, but it is kind of evident how weak he is when my Power League randoms in Mythic or whatever on my mini account don't pick Bo. Before, like a year ago, they'll just pick Bo no matter what, because he was pretty strong. So I think a small buff would be sufficient. I think probably just buffing his gadgets, to be honest. I know I don't want him to be a gadget dependent brawler like the past, but he is just like, these gadgets are terrible. Tripwire just rarely gets value. His new gadget as well is just really lackluster, doesn't really do too much. So I think buffing his gadgets would be a nice way to bring him back a little bit to the meta. But let me know down in the comment section below who you'd like to see a buff and a nerf with. Just maybe note the top 2 you'd like to see a buff and a nerf with. But that's going to be it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.